I'm going to give you 5 reasons why we are in this nightmarish dystopian mess. Now, there's a lot more than 5 that I could come up with. But one of the things that I find fascinating is tracking back and trying to add context and pin down what are the actual reasons why we as a society, not just in this country, but in countries across the world, in the Western world, why have we reacted in the way that we have in the past 12 months? Why have we allowed ourselves to be dictated to such a degree? And why have we not asked enough questions? So before I start with these 5 main reasons, if you do like my channel, then please subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this video. Okay, so reason number 1, how are we in this mess? So, too many years with relatively little threat. And I think this is a big one. I don't think that many people anyone who's been born since the end of the Second World War, realise that in being born since the end of the Second World War, they've been born as one of the luckiest generations that's ever been alive. Probably the luckiest, not just in terms of the relative lack of threat, as I mentioned. So there's been no war, dictatorship, flood, famine, or serious disease. There have obviously been diseases, but there's not been a serious disease outbreak. Not only that, but there have been the opportunities as well. You know, the jobs for life, pensions, financial security, and then general freedom of the press, very staunch kind of like democratic systems, and general freedoms as well. I don't think many people realise how lucky that they've been, which explains to me, or at least partially explains, the lack of anger at those freedoms being taken away, and at everything that we had, or a lot of things that we had, no longer being there anymore. The lack of anger with regard to that as well. There seems to be a real lack of awareness about what's actually happened. Is it because of a general apathy and a complacency that's creeped in because there hasn't been that threat and adversity in our lives? I made the point as well, point 2, a general lack of resilience and perspective in the population. And I see this particularly, and it's interesting, this in the older generation. And when I say the older generation, not people in the 80s, 90s and 100s, but in the 60s and 70s, the sons and daughters of the wartime generation, I see a massive difference between them and the wartime generation. Notwithstanding the absolutely horrendous propaganda that has been unleashed on all of us, but I think particularly has been targeted at older people, many of whom, you know, they do rely on the BBC and media outlets such as that. Notwithstanding the fact that they've been the main targets of the propaganda, I am astounded at and amazed at how many people, but again, a lot in the older generation, are failing to get this in perspective, are failing to recognise that this is a virus with an astonishingly small death rate, that there could have been much greater threats. In fact, the law of averages, there should have been much greater threats, and we should be facing much greater threats from nature than we are currently dealing with, and we will do in time than this. Not being able to get their head with it, and the way that they're reacting, hiding away, being scared, instead of doing what I always thought, you know, this country was all about, dealing with adversity, facing up to it when it happens, and this is only, or should have been only, mild adversity. So I think a real lack of perspective, definitely, and resilience, I would say, to a degree as well. Yes, people are trying to carry on, but so many people are being guided by fear. And like I say, I do see a big difference in that generation, the 60s and 70s. My perspective is that the most awake generation, if you want to use that word, I see is the people, say 32 to maybe 55, something like that. I don't know whether that may be something to do with, that's the only generation that has fully immersed itself and experienced the pre-internet age as well as the internet age, and obviously the social media age as well. I don't know, and that is only my perception on things. But certainly a general lack of resilience and perspective in the population at large. Which leads me on to the next point, a failure of our education system. Because what else could explain the lack of questioning government policy, suffocating, oppressive government policy, and the lack of challenge to the media narrative? What else could explain that other than a widespread failure of our education system to teach people not what to think, but how to think? I do think, and again, it's certainly true, because I think there's a skepticism and a cynicism in, I know that there certainly is, well, with me, a lot of my friends, and I think in the younger age group, I think there is, but certainly in the older age group, again, 60s and 70s, there's this trust in the media, this trust in government, which I understand why that is, because of the reasons I've said earlier, is that we've never really had a government that's turned tyrannical on us. I think the media, until the last few years, has had at least a veneer of impartiality, which we don't have now. But maybe there's that failure to recognise that what's always been the case is no longer the case, if that makes sense. Reason number 4, a lack of ability to recognise and to deal with risk. I find this one really perturbing and disturbing, that again, it's all my perception, but there appears to be this kind of like attitude that we shouldn't have to face risk in our lives. It's very, very strange. Whether it could be explained at first by the rise of the health and safety culture, did that start in the 70s? I'm not sure, a bit before my time. But I certainly seen health and safety, unnecessary health and safety practices, people starting to contract their health and safety out to their employer or to the state. And we talk about like maybe an over-reliance on the welfare system and on the state to solve everybody's problems, which the state is not there to do. And the rise of things like safe spaces at universities and all this kind of thing. People seem to not really have again, that resilience really to risk, and that we've lost that appreciation of balancing risk. I think we've definitely seen that in the last 12 months. The government would not have been able to get away with what they've done if people had a more, I would say, mature and nuanced approach to risk. I mean, let's look at coronavirus. As we know, I'm sure everybody on this group knows the death rate from or with COVID. We could argue over what it is. It's exceptionally low. I think, according to my latest statistics, it's 0.13% of the population. And then we can argue, you all know this, about the way that the deaths are collated. And okay, so it's taken into account there is a risk there. Okay, but balancing that risk with the risk to all of our lives, with regard to our health and our freedoms, with going along with everything that we're told to do. It's appreciating that risk is always a factor in all of our lives, and it shouldn't mean that we're willing to sacrifice all of our freedoms in exchange for the feeling of security. And I think the best quote to sum this up is, I think it was Thomas Jefferson said, "Those who prioritise the illusion of safety over freedom deserve neither safety or freedom," which is harsh, but I agree with him now. After what I've seen this year, I agree with him. Because I think we've vomited all over the memory of the wartime generation. That was only 70, 80 years ago. How would we forget so quickly? And we're vomiting all over the prospects of the next generation, the children now, the innocent ones. Where's the money for their economic catastrophe that they may have to deal with? Where are their opportunities? Where are their freedoms? Well, we're not really looking out for them, are we? And number 5, a rabid, malevolent and repugnant media. And I'm being kind there. The BBC and Sky, the BBC in particular, are nothing more than spreaders of poison and malignant messaging. They are merely now a propaganda arm of the Conservative government and have lost all credibility whatsoever. They have no claim to be impartial whatsoever now, or to inform on a level that is respectful and balanced. They are disgusting. They are the enemy. And I wish, and again I talk about the older generation again here, people would recognise that they've morphed into a monster that is enabling the brainwashing of millions of people in this country. And like I say, a propaganda arm of a Conservative government who, notwithstanding the fact that they're mired in large-scale corruption, as Conservative governments always are, have lurched terrifyingly to the far left, which sounds bizarre to say. A Conservative government has delivered socialism to the UK, socialism on steroids, a socialism that even in my wildest nightmares I couldn't imagine Jeremy Corbyn having unleashed on this country if he would have won the last election. It's absolutely terrifying. So that's the last one, the spread of poison by the media on the instruction of a socialist Conservative government. So anyway, let me know what you think on those 6 main points. There are many more points actually. Go off on all kinds of different tangents and go really, really deep into this, and I will do. But let me know what you think. I am going to do a video. It'll be tomorrow on, okay, they're the reasons. It's all well and good me commenting on how society got to this point and being pretty critical like it just had been then. Tomorrow's video will be on what can I do? Okay, how am I failing at the moment in this society? How can I try harder? What do I need to do as an individual, even with my limited power, to bring about improvement in the situation? But anyway, let me know what you think of those 5 points. Great to speak to you again. I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.